So it's been a lot of trouble going to this film.
They
Did not start shooting until late last year.
Ooh.
Yeah, well, I
Well,
mean,
there's been
well, sort of.
Actually, yeah, because Justin Lin came in quite late, didn't
Well,
he?
basically,
Because
obviously,
it was-
after JJ had left, the whole franchise was in a sort of limbo because JJ was the moving point of it. He was very much the driving force of it. Karl Urban, who plays Bones, went on record saying that he didn't want to come back unless they had like a proper thing on there. And Zoe Saldana as well, she said as well that she wanted to come back only if they had something proper for her to do, and she was just waiting on the call.
It was supposed to be the guy who was doing Jurassic World, isn't it?
Yeah, Antonio
J.A. Bayona.
Yeah, oh yeah, I was gonna. Yeah,
he's doing Jurassic World 2, isn't he?
Yeah, he is doing Jurassic World 2, which is going to film early next year. So a lot of trouble going into it. Simon Pegg, he said it was the hardest day of his life. He had to write the script. He sat down with the story producer and the main producer for 16 hours in one day, and said it was the worst day of his life. And he had
wrote
to write
the whole
script
in one day.
Well, they got the outline.
Blimey.
They got the outline of the story and the whole thing done in one day. So he was very much given the reins to do it because he was just told, since you're a super fan, why not you do it?
There's always the risk there, isn't it, of making it like sort of fan service.
Exactly, and this is all coming off the back of Into Darkness, which has been absolutely shredded by Star Trek fans and a few movie fans, to be fair. Star Trek fans, the biggest convention they do, I think, they called it the worst Star Trek ever. And is
it worth it at this point that we're not like massive Star Trek
No, absolutely
people?
not. And I really enjoyed both of the reboots.
And I apologise for any kind of things that we get wrong. I don't know, and I've seen all the films. I think they're fine.
So Star Trek, after your directors left, you cast on sure if they want to come back, and you haven't got a script. What do? You turn into Star Trek Beyond. So they're a few years into this 5-year mission now, and Chris Pine's Captain Kirk is sort of a bit world-weary now. He's not really sure what he's going on. I feel like in a nice little nod to the TV series, it goes on about how it's feeling a bit more episodic in space nowadays. And it's very standard, and it goes on. And they go to this place called Yorktown to stock up on supplies. And when they come there, they are interrupted by a distress call. And it is a woman who was on a research team, and she was attacked, basically. And they go out to deep space in uncharted territory where they've run into Karl, who is a villainous warlord who has something that the Enterprise crew have, and they end up crash landing on his planet, and they have to band back together and survive against all of the odds and Krall's villainous plan. I mean, for Star Trek at least, there was criticisms a lot from the Star Trek fans that saying that the Star Trek movies in the reboots weren't exactly in tune with the series in terms of like the exploration, like the characters and the banter that they have between themselves. And they've absolutely succeeded in this one. I mean, I feel like they've all settled into their rules now. You really feel that Simon Pegg's done a good job with the script because it's witty, it's fun, and he pairs them up with people that you wouldn't expect. I like how they've paired up Spock with Karl Urban's character, and they really, I don't know if that's a thing in the TV series, but they really have a good antagonistic relationship.
The general thing is that that it's good because they've put them in those kind of pairings. And it's opened up new corners of their friendships and stuff.
And even though I was a fan of Into Darkness, you definitely feel like the weight of history pulling down because I had a call back to like the Klingons and things like that. So it did feel that, even though I'm not a fan. But this one, it feels so totally fresh. You've got Idris Elba's villain Karl, who's this totally imposing warlord who takes an interesting development as the film sort of reaches the climax.
I've heard a lot of people saying like underdeveloped, but when it gets to the third act, when you do find out more,
he's a very good villain by that point. Yeah, I really enjoy that. He's just he's menacing. He's got that side confidence that he just knows he's going to win. So he really fills that role well. He's just as good as Cumberbatch was in Into Darkness, and it all feels it's still really fresh, and it feels like it's got its ground. It's got its feet firmly stuck in the ground. The crew all work well together. Everyone from Quinto to Urban to poor Anton Yelchin, bless him. There's plenty of tributes in there for him. And there's Saldana and John Cho, who's been revealed as gay in this film as well. So.
And of course, a gay kiss was cut from the film.
Yeah, which and you can see where it was cut as well.
Yeah, all well and good preaching equality, but if you actually don't have the balls to go through with it, then what's the point?
But I mean, that's just sort of the spirit of Star Trek, isn't it? It's all exclusivity. But really, I mean, you get to see as the film goes on. You've got Sofia Boutella's character.
I was just looking for a character name.
Who was she's an alien who was sort of orphaned on the planets that Karl sort of dictates on, Jayla, and she's sort of very, very. I mean, well, there's a plot involving a ship that lands there. I won't spoil that, but basically that's got lots of Earth culture on there, and it's got lots of like classic like music and stuff. And she's very sort of weird and sort of the way that she So I mean, basically, like she's very sort of strange on there because she's always going about like the names that she mispronunciates and the music that she's into. I mean, what does she call Scotty?
Montgomery Scotty.
Montgomery Scotty, and she only refers to Kirk as James T the whole time. It's really funny how out of the loop she is, and she's really awkward. That's how you expected her to speak, I guess.
I loved her. She was in Kingsman, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was. She was the
with the
one
blades.
with the heels. Yeah, the slicey heels.
She was fantastic.
Yeah,
I
really
liked her. It certainly seems like she's going to be part of it in a more general sense.
I hope
as well.
so. I hope she continues on. And yeah, you really peel it back to reveal the proper human relationships at the core. You see James Kirk at his worst point. You see these relationships that have opened up. Zachary Quinto gets a nice little sort of storyline, progressive, as obviously Leonard Nimoy passed away, disappointing in that. But you get to see everything that goes on with that, and just the fact that they've managed to build these characters up in such a way that you now feel for them as their mission goes on, and the adventure's just so frenetic, you know. It's endless. It's like Star Wars. I mean, even though J.J. Abrams isn't helming this one, you really do feel like it's just like Star Wars in this one.
It still has the sort of sweeping camera stuff, but without the lens. Without the lens flare.
Yeah. But it does peel back to reveal the characters and the plot more, which is good for them because that's what it needed to do to take away the detractors. And I honestly can't see why anybody would really dislike this in any major way because it's just a fun ride throughout space.
There's always something, isn't there? As sort of die-hard fans
and you've
of
got
series.
That Giacchino soundtrack pumping through. It's
that's one thing. The sound design in general is really good because you've got the fast-paced, frenetic scenes. You've also got the vastness of space. There's the silent moments when it comes out from the ship and you see the vastness and the emptiness and hollowness. That's the part I really like the most, I think.
It flourishes its most when it's dialing it back to the characters and just reveling in the fun that space has, you know. But it's also dangerous and not afraid to shy away from that.
Star Trek Beyond. I was really, really impressed by it. I think Simon Pegg. It's always like I said, it's always a risk when you get a big fan but it's also it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because you don't want it to be too fan servicey. It is an anniversary this year, though, isn't it?
Yeah, so the 60th?
I think 50th.
Yeah, 50th.
There's always got to be some form of nods, doesn't there? There's always got to be something along the way to kind of just evoke emotion from the fans. It does that, but it also is its own thing.
Exactly.
And that's admirable in this day and age when there's so much nostalgia bait in reboots and remakes and stuff. They've said that there's a lot more story to tell. JJ says the next one coming up is one of his favourite Star Trek stories.
And Chris Hemsworth is coming back.
And Chris Hemsworth is back as Kirk's father. However that will work, we don't know. There's not been much mention of how it'll work, but people can come back to life in Star Trek. The possibilities are endless, essentially.
It just feels like they've properly found their feet now, and you can really feel that they're having great fun with it, and that's even more to their credit given the troubles that it had at the start of production.
It is odd that it took JJ a step away for them to kind of find their feet and explore themselves, but I think in Just London they've done well. He's supposedly the director of the better Fast and Furious films.
Maybe JJ will come back now.
I see that kind of action that he brings to it. It's well shot. Some complaints of CGI, but I think on the whole it's fine.
Really
there's some stuff that looks a bit suspect, but generally it's Star Trek. It's always going to be a little bit campy because of the entire 50 years.
That's just how it is.
It is. Recommend?
Absolutely, yeah. A really fun ride. Maybe my favourite of the three.